My name is Ernest Lefner. I'm product officer at Gluware, co-founder of ONUG. I've got to say, we are absolutely packed in here. Normally, after lunch, everyone's half asleep, staggering around for coffee. And so I'm really excited by the amount of people in the turnout today. And with me is Tarun Raisoni, who is the CEO of Gruve.ai and a brand new partner to Gluware. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks, Ernest. Thanks for having me here. And yeah, it's absolutely packed here at ONUG today. And it's great to see how further this organization has come over the last 10, 12 years. And, I remember my first ONUG conference here about 12 years ago. So it's just phenomenal to be here today. Thank you again.
What company were you with back then?
Back then, I was with Anuta.
Exciting. Been a lot of change in this marketplace. All right. We were at CG Ajakoto, the CIO from OSUMC, was going to be with us today. Unfortunately, he's not able to join us, but he has graciously given us permission to talk through his use case. I believe that we are not, we're going to need a little assistance. All right. So as we get to talking about our OSUMC, okay, this is not working either. All right. Oh, that's much, much better. All right. As we get to talking about our OSUMC use case, which we'll get to in just a minute, I think it's really important to note how important our partners are to the success of our customer initiatives. And Gruve.ai has been a great partner with us, and we want to talk a little bit about the services they bring to bear and how that was a benefit in service delivery with our customers. So take it away, Tarun.
Thanks, Ernest. So my past startup was really focused around helping a lot of the hyperscalers out of the West Coast in basically building out their data centers and especially their big hyperscale cloud initiatives. So we learned a lot in that 10-year journey with them. And when we started Gruve AI, we realized like enterprises need a lot of help in terms of building out their AI capabilities. And there are a lot of areas where enterprises will need to build out their own AI infrastructure, whether in the cloud or on-prem. And we felt like there was a lot of services that were required in that space. And the traditional services mindset has to change, especially with where AI is taking all of us over. So we focused on 4 or 5 areas that we felt were the key areas where enterprises will continue to invest. Cybersecurity being one, the entire cloud engineering, cloud automation, whether it's private cloud or public cloud, workload migration. And then also enterprises have a lot of data. Today, a lot of the generative AI that is out there that we leverage or we use, that data is outside the firewall. A lot of the data that has value is inside the firewall. And how do you bring data lifecycle management, governance practices to that data? How do you make sure that data doesn't go out into a public AI provider, what is confidential and highly classified for your enterprise? So there's a lot of services in that space where we felt like AI can be very useful. A lot of use cases, but if I had to talk about use cases, there are 3 primary use cases on AI. One is how does the enterprise generate more revenue? How does that translate to business growth? Second is how do you optimize profitability or operations? How do you streamline your operations using AI? And the third one is customer retention. How can you use AI to benefit in terms of retaining your customers? So when we started looking at all of this, the platform capabilities became very important. And one of the things we loved about Gluware was the amount of time and effort you guys have invested into building up the Gluware platform, which is where this partnership for us was very important. And I think your most recent launch of Gluware AI is very interesting. So maybe you can talk a little bit about what Gluware AI platform is and what it brings to the enterprise as well.
Yeah, thanks, Drew, and I appreciate that. We've got a great demo coming up later on today. Kevin Irwin's going to be taking our ONUG participants through it. we're focused in two big areas in AI. First is our co-pilot for network operators, and second is our co-pilot for development. And really, our co-pilot for network operators, so sure, we're going to make help files available and you're going to be able to ask questions, but the goal is to fundamentally change the way you interact with your network. Sort of think Starship Enterprise kind of stuff, right? You're talking to an agent that's aware of the capabilities in the network, and it's building, orchestrating, and executing those capabilities for you, saving your operators time, money, and energy, being able to resolve problems and get the most important things done most quickly. And then same for development, right? We've integrated development directly into our IDE, and you're able to develop 100 times faster by just explaining to the IDE what you want and what your outcomes should be, and then seeing that code generated and then immediately validated against the Gluware engine. And then once you validate it, you essentially press go, and all the forms that you've developed, they just show right up. And Kevin and team is going to be showing that later on today, and it's very, very exciting how that's growing.
Thanks, Ernest. So I think one another thing that is very important is, as enterprises look to these services, typically these services today are delivered based on effort, right? Everybody goes on effort, everybody talks about effort. And what I think is very important is it's really about the outcome and not so much about the effort anymore. And that is an area where we as an organization are trying to put our efforts and focus onto is how do we come to an enterprise and we say, how do we deliver you an outcome? And how do you pay for an outcome? How do you value an outcome? I think that is far more important than just focusing on an effort where things are. So really, I think AI is going to also change the business model of the IT services industry in a significant way, in which it will focus on outcome and not effort. A couple of years from now, if you're paying your IT services providers on effort, something's off. You got to be focused on outcome, how that outcome's getting delivered, and how that outcome's getting measured, right? So I see a fundamental way in this outcome is going to shift. So when we think about also network automation, especially transcending through layers of that network, it's going to be about that outcome. How do you define a service and that service gets automatically stitched? And you're no longer worried about how many hours you're spending, how you're doing it manually. That automation and having that outcome of defining what your service is going to be and how you stitch it is where the world needs to get to, right?
I wish I could print, just record you and put that on repeat, right? As we go through and talk to our customers and our friends and folks that we work with here at ONUG, it's always the same thing. Like, hey, how's your network automation initiative going? Is it successful? Have you hit the marks? And they're like, oh, we're working on our Ansible or our Python scripts, and invariably they're in the same spot they are, ONUG after ONUG after ONUG. And while the ultimate goal is to get to that service layer, they never seem to get closer to it. There's always a reason to restart. There's always another platform where everything's got to be rebuilt. And I think what really made a difference in our use case with OSUMC was the Gruve team working with Gluware was kind of able to take an organization that wasn't really prepared for automation at scale, get them prepared, and then take some of their most significant initiatives and drive them out. Your thoughts on that before I cover the contents?
Yeah, I think the OSUMC is a very good use case. And I think CG came here a couple of years ago. He presented what he wanted to build. I think when you think about it, the basic context for him is he needs there to be more doctors in OSUMC, not more IT people, right? And how do you make sure that you can deliver that service faster, better, more cost effectively? Is through automation, through using technologies that can enable you to stitch that service together. And how do you deliver that? And I think it would be great for the audience to explain how that journey transcended over the last 2 years and where OSUMC is today.
Yeah, I think it's really key. The CIO, Deputy CIO CG, set this very ambitious plan to develop automation, to really push OSUMC to the top of the innovative hospitals, in the country. And he did this through, an orchestration first, automation first plan by embracing technology and making it a part of the way the business is delivered. If you take a look at some of the outcomes that we've had in working together with us, right? They just built a brand new 26-story state-of-the-art hospital. And one of the requirements they had is, except for somebody plugging in cables and turning a box on, they don't want anyone involved. So they came to Gluware and said, we're putting 9300s out in scale in stacks of 6. There are hundreds and hundreds of these devices, and we want no one involved. So Gluware's got to print out the wiring diagram, basically provide instructions for the regional analysts to be able to deploy, got to be able to upgrade the code for those devices when they come on site, and then deploy configurations. And we're not talking about simple configurations like NTP and loopback addresses. We're talking about multicast enabled and managed EVPN VXLANs that span the width and breadth of the hospital. Right? We're talking about complex segmentation scenarios that keep parts of the hospital from talking to one another and bringing a fundamentally changed layer of security. We're talking 34,000 Catalyst ports being provisioned with no human intervention. We're talking about HIPAA compliance. We're talking very scalable EVPN VXLAN environment, which I mentioned. And then really 6 switches upgraded in an hour without a human touching them and then deploying code onto that. That's pretty ambitious for everyone, today. And we do that out of the box for our customer. And so when we say that the future is flawless and exponentially faster, it's not a joke. These are actual outcomes our customers are seeing in their environments. And love to get your thought on being the partner that helped drive this all to happen.
Yeah, thanks, Ernest. And this is a place where actually we are starting to do a lot of work in terms of how do we deploy services to help our clients out. And in the previous session, one of the panelists spoke about how AI is being used by experts. And I think that is super important because, your smartest software engineers, if they are enabled with AI, they'll be able to write code a lot more faster and actually test that code a lot more faster. So if you can enable your smartest team members with AI, the output is going to be significantly enhanced compared to where it is. And then those team members are going to take the rest of the team forward in terms of how the usage of the AI becomes more and more efficient. So one of the areas where we are helping OSUMC is we are testing all of these. We're writing a lot of unit test cases. We're writing a lot of integration on top of the Gluware platform, where we are actually doing this a lot more faster using AI. We are enabling this with AI. Now, hospital use cases, healthcare use cases are fairly complex. Compliance is a very important part in that. How do you make sure that there is 802.1x compliant on every single one of those switch ports? How do you ensure that the PII data is getting sanitized, not just at rest, but also in motion? So there's a lot of work that goes into this in order to build it. And the best way that we have been able to solve this problem is we have been able to use a lot of this AI efficiency within our service delivery to be able to automate this, to do unit testing and leverage this as we go forward. So I think it's a very interesting use case. I feel like the design of what CG thought a couple of years ago and where he is today is a great framework if you're thinking about how you want to enable this in your journey as you get into that area of network automation. So,
yeah, I really want to double click on what you said. So let's start thinking about things in aggregate just a little bit. You've got Gluware as a platform for a growing services industry, right? Get customers that you're driving technology change to, managing their network and security infrastructure. You're leveraging AI to write applications to simplify the way you deliver that service. You're going to leverage AI to write applications on top of Gluware, right? Which could be available to the community at large. And you're really going to use that to accelerate time to market, profitability, revenue, and customer retention, which speaks really to the heart of what you talked about earlier, which is how do you best leverage AI in order to drive the outcomes you're looking for. And you can't, if you've got an Ansible practice, you're not going to get that done, right?
No. And I also think like there is a community here. There is a huge ecosystem here that actually comes into play to make this success. We deliver the services, we deliver that last mile, but we cannot make that happen without an enhanced technology platform like Gluware. And the reason for that is very simple. There is years of investment that goes into building a platform, and there is years of investment that goes into building the muscle around doing the service delivery. So it's a very large ecosystem that comes to play when you want to build something like this. And not one company can do it all. It requires that strength to be able to deliver that outcome again that people need. So, as you start thinking about your own internal organization and how you're going to go transform your internal organization, how are you going to talk AI with your C-suite? You will have to also internally focus on an outcome. What is that outcome that internally your organization is going to deliver? And trust me when I say this, in a couple years' time, C-level executives are going to measure everything on outcome. This is where the world is headed. And AI makes it super easy to measure outcomes now. You can summarize things in AI so much faster than where it would take you time and hours to go through that same report. So internally and externally, organizations have to come together and focus on what is that outcome that will ultimately deliver those 3 use cases. So, Ernest, I want to take this opportunity to also congratulate you on your years of leadership with ONUG. But what are some of, you have done it all. You've been on the customer side, you've been on the partner side, you've been on the consulting side as well, right? So maybe share a little bit with this audience about what that journey and that transformation looked like when you looked at it from the outside as well as the inside.
Gosh, I don't think we have enough time for that. But what I'll tell you is that, between my military career and my time, in finance, as well as my time in consulting, I felt like I always wanted to leave a mark. I wanted to leave the industry better than when I came. And when I had an opportunity to work with Nick to start ONUG, it was very similar. How do we change the networking industry for better? How do we make a difference as individuals? And then how do we come together as a collective to make a difference together? And I went to Ernst & Young with a really good friend of mine, Cesar, who's in the front row here. And Cesar implemented Gluware at Ernst & Young. And I was really surprised at how well things came together there. And after having been on that hamster wheel of trying to build it myself, I just realized this is another opportunity to try to change the industry, to get people thinking differently. And I don't know if you've been following LinkedIn at all. I'm on a little bit of a tirade right now in social media about the fact that you'll have a major risk, right? Some of our companies and many people in this room, right, are in this situation where they haven't upgraded an OS for 5 years. And somehow that's okay. And when I talk to them, I'll be like, hey, we can help you fix this problem in 90 days. And they're like, no, I have a 5-year plan to write this all myself. And it's like, why is your CIO letting that happen? Oh, guess what? You just had a huge outage, right? Because you were rolling code out and the automation was bad. And there's no one to call on the phone. There's no one to help. There's no enterprise to support you in the background. And so really that's what I'm trying to get people to focus on is there's a better way. And it doesn't have to be what everybody else is doing. And to think hard. And then ultimately tying it all together with AI, like you're saying, we've been learning a lot about AI and how to build products, just like you are, and integrating AI into Gluware. And like we talked about last ONUG, the complications with AI aren't what can you do with AI, it's what don't you want it to do with AI. It's how do you get ahead of the computer to think about all the ways this thing can go off the rails and build a mechanism and safeguards in order to prevent that from happening. And we've seen market improvements. We're getting ready for early field trials in January. And our goal really is to get it to the point where it is a natural interaction between the prompt and the user and your engineers, and have the ability to execute what you want as a part of that process, and not have to worry about, well, I asked if there's a version of code for a vulnerability on 6500. I know there's not, but the AI engine says there is, right? So we're just figuring through those kinds of problems. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ernest, there that I think we see a lot of customers that are running a lot of old code. There are vulnerabilities out there. There are challenges out there. And again, the question comes back to why. Why are you trying to do this when there are several solutions available today to help you with this? But I want to take again a moment to appreciate inviting me here.
You too. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
And thank you for accelerating our customer services and making what they want a reality far faster than they ever imagined they could. Full building distribution build out, zero touch provisioning, EVPN VXLAN stand up. These are not trivial things. They're very hard to do. And to do them at scale with tens of thousands of ports is very complicated. So thank you.
Thank you, Ernest.
And thank you to OSUMC and CG who couldn't be here today. We really appreciate them being a customer and being a part of our journey.
Thank you.